Michael Flynn, former Trump national security advisor, one of the top cabinet positions in the country.
His brother, I believe, still very high up in the military. Let me get that.
And he's Michael Flynn, at least, huge QAnon believer. Goes to QAnon conventions, poses with QAnon t-shirts on. He is a total lunatic, and at one point was one of the most powerful people in the country.
Oh yeah, speaking of Hawaii, Michael Flynn's brother, Charles A. Flynn, is a United States Army general who serves as commanding general of the United States Army in the Pacific. That is the Pacific Ocean. That is well, from what I understand, a fairly major ocean on this planet.
Well, let's hope that he doesn't share his brother's views on the world, and I would say that's a very dim hope, okay?
Cross my fingers on that one.
But because, obviously, military brass trend pretty right, and that's not just in the United States. But Michael Flynn made this comment last week. He spoke about his trip to Auschwitz, and the way that he talks about Jews not resisting more, it's pretty
Kanye?
horrific.
That sounds like a choice.
Well, let's take a listen. Let's hear Michael out.
And this was at an event in Michigan entitled "A Celebration of America's Freedom and Future," and it was streamed on General Flynn's Rumble channel.
But any mother who would be told, "Give me your child," okay, give me your child, your baby, and we're going to separate you, and we're not just going to put you into a.
Like we did as stated policy in the Trump administration.
Yeah, I'm literally thinking, like, what are we talking about? Like, recent American history?
Okay, start over.
I would support, yeah, anyway.
But any mother who would be told, "Give me your child," okay, give me your child, your baby, and we're going to separate you, and we're not just going to put you into a, club coach car, right, where there's buffet service. We're going to stuff you like a sardine into a train. And early on, they really didn't know. They thought that they were being taken out of war zones to be taken care of. And then it didn't take long before the word got out, because people started to escape. Some great stories about it. And they started to realize, hey, they're actually taking you there, and they're doing some really sick things.
Murdering you?
But I'm thinking to myself, because I asked the guy, the very, very astute historian that was walking myself and a couple others through, I'm asking him, so tell me, what were the rules for the guards? Because there wasn't many guards, but there were thousands of people. Maybe they're members of your congregation. Maybe it's you. That just said, okay, here's my child, and get on the train. Talk about being in the valley of the shadow of death. Now that's in the 30s, in the 1930s. That's not even 100 years ago.
He kind of trails off on the end, because he doesn't go where the beginning of his thought is leading him. But we all know what that thought really was, right? He's victim blaming victims of the Holocaust.
Like a choice. It's Kanye. That sounds like a choice.
That is, I don't know, man. Like, we've really played, we played a few clips recently, including Greg Gutfeld saying, at least people learned some skills in the Holocaust. Essentially saying that equating being, the hardening of your calluses in a concentration camp, as opposed to the trauma that is so unspeakable that has lasted for generations, survivors of the Holocaust and their descendants, as if that people using skills in the Holocaust wasn't just like a way for them to make it to the next day because they were providing usefulness, including Jewish guards that he's referring to there, right? So they could just get to the next day and not be gassed and maybe have some food so they wouldn't be starving to death. As if that is some sort of silver lining, as opposed to an indictment of genocide. Yeah, I didn't think we were doing like reversal of history on the Holocaust, but apparently we are. And this guy was in the Trump administration 6 million Jews. I mean, they just didn't have the intestinal fortitude to say no to the Nazis, is what the implication is for that. And again, I just get so sick and tired of these freaks and people that, shared a cabinet with this guy, calling the left and people like Ilhan Omar anti-Semitic because the left chooses to speak out against apartheid in Israel. When this is what they really believe behind closed doors. Rudy Giuliani, allegedly, according to the lawsuit brought against him by the woman he allegedly sexually abused and harassed, calling her big tits over and over again, among other things, spoke about how, Jewish guys' penises are so small because they use them so little. I mean, they're just casually saying that in conversation, behind the scenes, allegedly. It just is... They are fascists because they blame victims for their own misery. For their own genocide? I mean, I would have done it differently, right? I'm General Flynn. I would have done it differently. Now, you know what you would have done? You would have participated in the genocide. I mean, I'm sorry.
No, he would have. But these are Nazis.
Yeah.
Read The Operators by Michael Hastings. Goes into a lot of these figures, including Michael Flynn. And yeah, I mean, I think like these type of people, they would, for a completely different thought, kill journalists domestically. But like, I think these are complete evil that we're dealing with here, and also insane. And it doesn't speak well about the Democratic Party's control over the military that guy lasted so long under the Obama administration, although credit to Obama, got rid of him. But his brother's still there.
Yeah.
But also, basically the implication is he's saying that this huddled mass of Jews entering a concentration camp should have had the foresight or the chutzpah, so to speak, to rally together and overthrow the small amount of guards that were supposedly at either Auschwitz or Birkenau, I guess. So I guess the implication is that would have been enough to overthrow military officers with guns, that they would have not...
Exactly. Like, okay, you do a revolt and then you all get murdered by...
that's the I don't think he's dumb enough to not know that would have been the outcome of what his supposed counter strategy to what Jewish people who were forcibly put into concentration camps experienced in actual history.
This stuff is on their mind because they're going to do it.
Yeah. That's the thing. He's a fascist. And like, just don't call them Nazis, right? It's worse than being a Nazi, calling these guys Nazis. And this is what he says.
To Matt's point, it is similar, I think, to that of the comments Kanye made about slavery being a choice, because it seems to very conveniently elide or obviate the enormous weight and heft of institutionalized violence and rape and pillaging that was endemic and inherent to Nazism and to chattel slavery in the U.S.
Yeah.
What was behind just the matter of people being funneled into concentration camps and killed and separated from their families, what was inherent to the labor that was extracted from slaves, the violence that was carried out upon them, the separation of families there, the auctioning them off to the highest bidder to separate them from their families, was that if there was any resistance to that, they would be brutally and violently put down by torture, by rape, or by murdering them.
Yep.
And to act as if that this was an act of some sort of lack of willpower or like lack of strategic insight while this was happening is to basically ignore the entirety of the historical fabric of the time period that was actually happening.
And to your point, that's why stripping history of its context is a central project of the right. Absolutely. Because if you don't know the history, you might think that thought has some validity.
Right, and it's almost the same thing with enacting a anti-abortion policy and then ignoring when people with ectopic pregnancies either die or have to bring their fetuses to term.
Yeah.
Let's collapse that context so we can just stay with life winning or whatever.